Well, it's the matchups within the matchup, the games within the game that we all look forward to watching when it comes to an NFL game or a college football playoff game. And it is our first look at those matchups within the matchup, the games within the game for the CFP games that will be here, Diesel, in just 2 short days from now. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Tolo Tuesday edition of the show. A pleasure being with you on 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 FM Greenville. The 20 Tolos already watching the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Good to see you as well. But Diesel, it's the 2 days away tour now. And tomorrow, by the way, programming alert, Furman basketball plays really early tomorrow. So we won't have a ton of time to talk about these games tomorrow, and then bam, it'll be Thursday, and the Miami Ole Miss game will be here. Which of the two are you looking forward to the most, though? If you had to pick one, I want to know which one eagers you the most when it comes to these 2 college football playoff games, Diesel, this weekend.
Well, I'll answer that question in a second because I'm trying to distract myself of the sound of Dewey tapping his keyboard, already upset that you guys are getting another day off. That's not right. That's not fair.
It's a half a day, kind of.
It is what it is.
It's a half a day, Dewey.
Furman, can you play at 5 o'clock more
That's
often?
right.
We would love
Dewey,
that.
Listen to Furman if you're upset. Dan Scott and the crew, they do a great job. By the way, that is a 5 o'clock tip tomorrow, which means 4:30 airtime. And, again, we'll be off. We'll be on from 3 to 4:30 tomorrow. Our Wednesday guest that's joining us for the first time tomorrow at 4:20, I'm going to have to move her to 4, I think, Diesel, but it doesn't happen often. But it is going to be a lot of fun on Thursday.
But it's a tough question to answer. You got 2 big, fun matchups. We got a lot of teams that are not used to being in the college football playoff, that haven't been in the limelight at this level ever or in a very, very long time. You got some teams that a lot of people have expected to ascend into a major role for a long time, but never quite got there, not got over the hump yet. So it's fascinating, man. Miami, Ole Miss, and then Oregon, Indiana. Indiana might be the best story in college football. People love what they are. They love the fact that they've come basically from nothing all the way from the bottom, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. They've got a lightning rod of a head coach who is just, he is good for a great quote and a great drop every single interview that he does. I win. Google me. That kind of stuff from Kurt Signetti. The better game, which is going to be the better
Which one are you looking forward to the most? It's tough.
How many times can I flip this coin?
That's why I want to know. And Tolos want to know the same thing from you. I know you get to watch both, but if you had to pick one, which game do you look forward to the most, Thursday or Friday?
I think I'm looking to Friday's game the most.
Really?
Because I think it could be the one that is the high scoring, blow for blow, throwing haymakers for 4 quarters. Both teams end up in that 30-35 range, just like what we saw last night in the FCS National Championship. We'll talk about that in the next segment of the show. But I think this, as far as the best, most fun game to watch, if you're not a fan of any of these teams, the most fun one to watch, I think is going to be Oregon, Indiana 2.0.
See, you're right. It is the second matchup. I'm going Miami Ole Miss is the game that I'm looking forward to the most. I don't know why, but I will tell you this. When I watched Oregon, Texas Tech, I did fall asleep during that game on Saturday or Friday, whatever day it was. I fell asleep, so that says something. It bored me a little bit. Texas Tech didn't score, right? That didn't help. I like shootouts. I like scoring. I like points. I like offensive outputs, right? We all do. So I'm going to go with Miami Ole Miss as the game, Diesel, that I'm looking forward to the most on Thursday. It's a 3-point. Actually, both games are now 3.5-point spreads, which should be a lot of fun. Ole Miss and Miami is on Thursday. Oregon, Indiana, same thing. The 2 favorites are Miami and Indiana. So I'll go opposite, and I'll go Miami Ole Miss is the game that I'm looking forward to the most. Tolos, want to hear from you on the Joye Law Firm text line, 844-326-3663. But Diesel, let's start right there. Our first look, our first dive into these matchups. And again, later on in the show, we will go through and do a segment on if one of these teams loses, the reason will be what? Why will one of these teams lose? We'll do that at 4 p.m. But just our first look on it. I think this Miami Ole Miss game, Diesel, might be a little bit of a style clash football game, right? Miami has that speed. They have that explosiveness. They have the veteran quarterback play. And you look on the other side, Ole Miss is the tempo offense. Ole Miss is the one that wants to take shots with Trinidad Chambliss. They have the confidence, the SEC battle-tested, right? I think you could expect a lot of momentum swings in this one, but I think what will be fun to look at when you talk about the matchup itself is just how these two teams, it seems like, might be a clash in styles.
Yeah, Miami is a strong defensive team. They are a rhythm-based offense. Can they get that done the way that we hope that they will against Ole Miss? Ole Miss is not really a team that pressures the quarterback a ton. And we know that Carson Beck, when he is pressured a lot, play in and play out, he can get out of his rhythm and he can sort of fall apart. He can fall into shambles just a little bit. But what it takes to get that done is not really Ole Miss's strong suit.
Texter says, I will be looking forward to watching the Indiana-Oregon game with your mom the most. I don't know if that's a shot at you, me, who that is. Let's see. That comes from the 978. Ole Miss 31, Canes 27. That comes from JB on the stream. Madcraft says, just not seeing Ole Miss being better than Ohio State offense or A&M defense. We have the physical secondary to match. Ohio State had better receivers. I think it's interesting to look at, Diesel, because physicality is something that Miami, kind of thrives off of, right? You saw that in that Ohio State game. But then on the flip side, you mentioned their offense. They're averaging 34 to 36 points per game. A lot of RPOs, right? Vertical passing game with Carson Beck, a seasoned quarterback. I said that Ole Miss likes to run the tempo, but Miami also likes to score fast. I think this is going to be a clash of styles. And one thing that I would say about this game, Diesel, kind of in our first look, I think momentum swings are so big in these type of games. Go back and remember, Diesel, the Ole Miss-Georgia game. And I talk about this a lot in basketball because I think it happens a lot in basketball as well. But in these big games, I think momentum swings are so big. Which coaching staff, and at this point might not be talked about enough, but which coaching staff between Miami and Ole Miss can adjust on the fly the quickest Thursday night? Because I think there are going to be some big-time punches thrown.
Pete Golding said, now I talked to the staff. There is no staff. All this news that's coming out this morning that two more coaches from Ole Miss are not going to be involved in this game against Miami. It was the running backs coach and I think the pass game coordinator. Both of them, Lane said, all right, guys, that's enough. I need you to come on down here to Baton Rouge and be a full-timer. Now, there's a couple of other guys who are staying on with Ole Miss. They've been flying back and forth, kind of doing the recruiting thing for LSU and the coaching thing for Ole Miss. How much of a distraction is that ultimately going to be?
I want to get to this. I'm glad JB brought this up because I wanted to ask you this as well, Diesel and the Tolos. JB on the YouTube stream said Chambliss is better than Reed or Sayin. Talking about Marcel Reed of A&M, right, and Julian Sayin of Ohio State. I think that might be true. Again, JB says Chambliss is better than Reed and Sayin. So basically saying that this will be the best quarterback, Diesel, that Miami's faced here in this playoff stretch, right? I think that's true. I think Chambliss is the best quarterback. I don't know, kind of like Madcraft's counterpoint, I don't know if they've seen a defense as physical as Miami's defense. But when I watched Trinidad Chambliss against Georgia, you know what I saw? I saw a quarterback that could just make plays, right? You and I talk about a lot, quarterbacks being able to do this, being able to do that. But at the end of the day, if you have a quarterback that can go out, play a little backyard ball and make plays, I know the defense might be good, but there's something about that Trinidad Chambliss kid that I watched against Georgia and thought, kind of reminded me of Deshaun Watson a little bit.
Doesn't it make you say, if you're a coach looking for someone in the transfer portal, when you look at guys that have made the step up from a G5 program to a power program and they're really, really good, or you see guys that even come from Division II Ferris State to the SEC and they're really, really good, it kind of makes you want to look down a level and say, all right, who's the winners? Like who are those dudes at that level, even if they're undersized, even if they're overweight, even if they're a little bit slow for your level? Find the dudes, not just the guys that, they came from a bigger program before they were here, so they must be really good players. Those guys rarely work out.
No, and you're right on that. I just think that ultimately quarterback play does matter. And I'm not saying like it's going to sound disrespectful toward Marcel Reed and Julian saying, but Diesel, did you feel like in that game against A&M for Miami or in that game with Miami and against Ohio State, did you feel like at any time, and Tolos, I'm asking you the same question, did you feel like watching Reed and saying at any point in that game, did you feel, oh my gosh, these guys at quarterback are an absolute game changer? I didn't. That's no disrespect. I just didn't see that game-changing ability. Deshaun Watson was known for being able to just change the game. And again, Marcel Reed and Julian Sayin are really good quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. I don't know if those two quarterbacks, going back to what JB said, I don't know if those two quarterbacks have the physical makeup of just being able to make things happen. I think that matters.
And both of those guys are young. You know, Marcel Reed is a sophomore. Julian Sayin, was he a redshirt freshman or is he a true
he is.
freshman?
I think he's a redshirt freshman. He is young.
Compare that to a guy like Carson Beck that should be that dude, right? He is basically Aaron Rodgers in college football. He's been there forever. He's been at Georgia. He's played in the SEC. Now he's playing at Miami and has continued to play at a high level until you get to the playoffs and he has to face actual really good defenses, and things have sort of minimized a little bit from there. His production is down. His touchdowns are down. His yardage is down. I mean, it's hard to know what it takes to be a game changer because it feels like Carson Beck has all of those intangibles. He's got the experience. He's got the pedigree. He's got the guys around him. And then it's not turning into production. It's still turning into wins.
It is.
And ultimately, that's all that matters.
That matters.
It's advance and survive and keep playing football. And who knows what can happen. You don't have to win every football game 38-35.
That's right.
You can advance in this playoff winning games 14-10 if that's what it takes.
I think Diesel, a lot of it just has to do with Trinidad Chambliss. And again, I just didn't watch him enough during the regular season because I don't watch every Ole Miss game. I think at the end of the day, that guy has more God-given talent, physical ability, physical traits that just sometimes Carson Beck doesn't have. You know, no disrespect to Carson Beck.
Some things you can't teach.
Some things you can't teach. Real quick before we move over to the Indiana-Oregon game, if I had to ask you if this game Thursday night goes bang, 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 fireworks, 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 and all of a sudden we get to the third quarter and I ask you, Diesel, which coaching staff do you trust more to make an adjustment to win the game? What would your answer be?
God.
You mentioned Pete Golding.
Yeah.
Right?
Pete's
defensive-minded guy now.
A little fresh. Maybe he's never had to make a lot of these kinds of decisions, but we know Mario Cristobal will make some head-scratching decisions as well. And it'll make you say, why did you do that, Mario? God, this is another one of those coin flip. Who do I choose?
Who do you trust more?
Maybe I trust Mario Cristobal just a little bit more because maybe in that situation, Pete Golding is saying, all right, what would Lane do? What would Lane do? And now he's not thinking for himself. He's thinking about someone else, about something else, trying to figure out what they might do and say, should I do that too? You know, it's a reason you end up second guessing yourself quite a bit.
Well, I guess it would also depend on what kind of adjustment it is too, right? If it's a defensive adjustment that Ole Miss has to make in the third quarter, that they're seeing something on tape when they're on the sideline going back and watching these plays. If it's a defensive adjustment, maybe Pete Golding does have a little bit of an advantage being a defensive-minded guy. I'm with you. I think I trust Mario a little bit more. Continuity and stability does matter to me, right? That's big. They've got it. Ole Miss doesn't right now. I think it's going to be a lot of fun on Thursday. Let's flip over to Friday, kind of our first look on Indiana-Oregon, a really important game, kind of the new blood versus a modern power. You know, Oregon, I guess they're a modern power, but the only thing is, you remember they were the 1 seed last year, and they fell flat on their face against Ohio State, which Ohio State should have been the 1 seed because they lost to Michigan. They were the 2. Oregon has not been great in the postseason, in the big games. Dan Lanning, I love, you love. We all respect Dan Lanning. I just think there's a lot to be said about Diesel. As good as Indiana is, I think this is one of those kind of career-defining games for Dan Lanning. Maybe we look at him differently if he could knock off Indiana on Friday.
You know, every time I look at Dan Lanning, I just wonder how many Zens does he have in his cheeks right now? Because
9.
That dude is always wired to the gills. He looks like he's ready to jump out of his skin at any moment. You know, he's a tactician. We've seen Dan Lanning. Who Who did he pull that was a timeout against last year?
I remember what
it was early in the season last year. I forget who it was against. Maybe it was it Boise State? I can't remember.
I do know.
And we were all thinking, oh my God, this guy is a mad hatter. He is a mad genius. And he's going against a guy in Curt Cignetti who's new on this scene, but has been around the game for a long, long, long time. He's learned from some of the best. All these guys have. Isn't it true that all of the coaches that are is still left in this playoff all came from the Nick Saban tree?
That's
which
correct.
Is fascinating. It would be just as much fun to just have these guys sit down in a room and talk about Nick Saban. That would be fascinating as well. 30-20 game in Eugene earlier this season.
Yeah.
I don't know that Oregon gets down in that hole like they get. Now, they dug out of it. They had it close going into the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter in that game back in October. Does Dan he have the ability to take what he saw and adjust and make sure they don't get down in that hole again?
Yeah. And that was their only loss, by the way.
True.
They're 13-1, and that conference loss you mentioned there. What'd you say at the end of November or October? I believe it was kind of early in the season, right, or midway through the season. I believe it was. Let's see here.
It's about 5-6 games into the season.
Yeah, October 11th. 30-20 was the final, and that was a game that at the time, like, of course, we paid attention to, but nobody sat here and thought, oh, this could be the game before the national championship, right?
It's kind of that thought, like, Indiana, that's cute. They look good. They look good again this year.
They haven't played anybody yet.
They haven't played anybody. They're not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden, boom, they go beat Oregon. They go on this run. They're 14-0.
They're physical. They're disciplined, Diesel. They're a low-mistake team. You talked about Curt Cignetti. They control the ball, play action heavy. I think they do a good job of shortening the game with their quarterback, who's very efficient in Mendoza. They win time of possession. They also win third downs and red zone efficiency. I want to give you this stat that they flashed on the screen a couple of days ago. I want you to hear this, Diesel. This was Fernando Mendoza against Alabama. You ready for this? Versus the blitz against Alabama, Fernando Mendoza was 8 of 8. 8 attempts, 8 completions, 161 yards against the blitz, 3 passing touchdowns. The 8 times Alabama brought the blitz, he scored on 3 of those. Now, one more for you. 20-plus air yard throws, meaning the ball was in the air for at least 20 yards, right? Mendoza was 4 of 4, 113 yards on 20-plus air throws with 2 passing touchdowns.
How do you defend this guy?
How do you do it?
If you rush him, he's going to throw it over your head. If you hang back, he's going to hit you for 20.
Yeah.
If I'm Dan Lanning and whoever his defensive coordinator is,
right,
I'm thinking play off the ball just a little bit early. See if I can coax him into getting into a running rhythm. Try to shut that down. Don't let Mendoza beat you with his arm because he can clearly spin that bean.
He's a smart quarterback, man. He's a smart quarterback. Reminds me a lot of Jared Goff, to be honest with you. And I know that Jared Goff has had struggles in his career at times, but he does remind me of Jared Goff. And I like Mendoza a lot. Oregon, on the Oregon side of things offensively, Diesel, we all know there's speed everywhere. You talked about Lanning. They attack you horizontally, vertically, in multiple formations. Their quarterback is just as good, maybe not quite as good as Mendoza, but still going to be drafted, in my opinion, pretty high, and he's comfortable, still a little bit younger. But I think his potential, his ceiling is really, really big, and he's fast. And I think that matters. I think, to your point, you said that this was the game you were looking forward to the most. I think this one has the marquee matchup. Like, this one could be really, really big. All eyes on Indiana, Oregon. Obviously, it's the only game. I just have no idea on this Tuesday which way I'm leaning. I am this much by a hair leaning Indiana. But at the same time, Diesel, I think that at some point in your career, you're due. And I think Dan Lanning might be due. He hadn't won the big game yet, but hey, it took Dabo and Kirby Smart a while as well, you know?
Does it feel like Oregon is due? Like, Oregon has made the college football playoff a couple of times.
It does feel like they're due.
And they've never won that national championship. I mean, how many times have we said Oregon's got all this Nike money? They're going to be able to just outspend everybody, get all the talent. And I mean, you still have to go out there and put it together. You still have to go out there and win the game. So just because you have the most talent on paper doesn't mean that you're going to go win a national championship. It just doesn't work that way. Either one of these teams, if they win, whichever one wins this game, if they go on to win the national championship, it's a great story for college football. I think it's a better story if Indiana gets it done in that Midwest. I mean, it continues the domination of the Big Ten, but also, again, you just have that program that's not used to being there, and it's proof that any program can pull itself up out of that hole that Indiana football was in for a long, long, long time. You don't have to have Nike money. I'm sure they got a lot of money floating around there now, but they didn't have that. That wasn't the story a couple of years ago. So it's a phenomenal story for any program that fancies themselves as a team that could go get it done. It's like all you got to do is find that right donor who's willing to write those big checks. You got to find that right coach, and you can do what Indiana has done.
And it's also funny, Diesel, real quick before we run to a break, that like that Oregon Nike money conversation that we always had, we're not having that conversation as much.
Doesn't seem to matter as much.
It doesn't. They still have it, but everybody's got it. Indiana's got it. Vandy's got it. So
how many titles did all those flashy uniforms get Oregon?
Right. And they also had some really good players during those stretches as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for Thursday. Again, really short show tomorrow because of an early Furman tip. But, man, these are going to be a lot of fun this weekend.
Speaking of a lot of fun, last night I saw college football Twitter come together in a way that I've never seen them do for two tiny little insignificant schools playing in that little FCS national championship game. I wonder if you knew Tolos, 844 fan phone. Text in right now. Did you watch the game last night? Did you not watch the game last night? I want to poll everybody. Light up that text line. Did you watch last night's FCS game or not? And I'll talk about it. We'll get into it, tell you how great it was next.
is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
JB on the stream says maybe one of these years, one of the FCS schools here in our area will be good enough to get and play and win a national championship. Well, to your point, JB, Furman made a run in 2023. They lost on the road at Montana, which ended their run. But, man, Furman had a really good couple of seasons in a row. I know things have not gone the way that Clay Hendricks out there would like it to have gone. But, hey, when you graduate an elite-level quarterback the way they did in, who was that, Trey Hedden, it's hard to get back to that level every year when you just have the restrictions they do over at Furman. But, man, I'm telling you, that game last night, if you missed it, and all you folks who say, I want purity in college football, I want them playing for the love of the game, I don't want them transferring out while they're making runs into the playoffs, I don't want them thinking about sitting out important games late in the season. Where were you watching last night's FCS national championship game? Now for the second year in a row, this game has come down to a tight football game to win the national championship in the FCS. I'm calling it right now, Cole. Not one of the three remaining FBS college football games is going to be as compelling as what we saw last night on ESPN in Nashville in the brand new revamped Vandy football stadium holding 24,000 fans. It was phenomenal.
I bet they had more fans than Vandy does, number one. Number two, Tyler Huff, who you're thinking about, the Furman quarterback.
Thank you.
Now, I will say this. I thought watching the highlights back today and doing a little digging on this game, I thought, this thing's going to be a blowout. It's 14-0 Montana State, right? And that was at the end of the first half. So the second half became really, really intriguing with Illinois State, who, by the way, was 12-4, even though it was a 10.5-point spread, I think, last night, which is a ton of points for a championship game. I don't know a lot about either team. I did tell a buddy of mine last night, Diesel, that 10.5 felt like a lot for a championship game. I wish I would have taken the 10.5.
Montana State has turned themselves into a mini power, a modern power. Like you were talking about Oregon in the last segment. That's what Montana State has become. Yeah, it's true that most of the really good FCS programs in the Southeast have all made their way up into FBS programs. And now out west, the Pacific Northwest, the Dakotas, Montana, Washington, that's where it seems like the power of FCS football is right now. And I'm totally okay with that, right? I mean, I'm not greedy. I don't need all of the best football all over the country to be played right here in the Southeast. But, man, last night, that was a show put on by those two programs. And that Indiana State team has been doing this all season long, Cole. They've gone on a phenomenal run. They were not even seeded in the bracket. That's how low they were in this FCS bracket. They made it all the way to the national championship game. By the way, they took out the number 1 seed North Dakota State Bison along their path. They get into this game. They're facing a Montana State team that played in this game last year, lost it to those aforementioned North Dakota State Bison. So they didn't want to go 2 in a row where they got into this game and didn't win the thing. But it was a truly magical football game.
I don't understand something, though. I'm kind of confused. Quarterback Tommy Rittenhouse of Illinois State, Diesel, how do you stay at one school for 4 years? How does that happen?
Is that legal?
You can do that?
Yeah, believe it or not.
He was there in 2022, but wait, why didn't he transfer in 23? No, he played in 8 games. 2024, he was all conference, honorable mention, scholar athlete, team, play. I mean, he's been there his whole career. So you kind of brought it up yesterday. I do like the purity of it. I would like to know, though, I don't have the numbers in front of me, how many FCS guys do make the jump to FBS. I'm sure there's a number.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine it's a big number, but it is high-level football. Watching the game, you mentioned the overtime game. Illinois State came out, scored first, right, at the end. I don't know, did Montana State, did they go for 2? I know they were up 21-7. They won 35-34.
So I'll get into that.
Okay.
Because it is worth, again, for the people who didn't watch it, go back and watch it. Instant classic game. Here's how this happened. Montana State pulls ahead early. They look like they're poised to rout Illinois State. It looks like it's going to be a splattering in Nashville, Tennessee. But then Illinois State, again, a team that won 4 straight road games in the playoffs, knocking off North Dakota State along the way, comes charging back, or so it seemed, And then Montana State with a wide receiver named Taco Dowler, who accounted for 2 touchdowns and a combined 134 yards, puts the game on his back. There was one play where he gets a 35-ish yard. He receives a pass around the 35, bounces off multiple guys, hurdles a defender, lands in that superhero landing. You know what I'm talking about? Like where a knee is down and a fist is on the ground and you look super cool. He gets up, he gets into the end zone, would not be denied on that play. Then, as the game continues to develop, it seems like, Montana State's starting to sputter a little bit. This Indiana State defense is starting to play really good. Maybe the momentum is slowly shifting in the second half of that game, and it gets to the point where Illinois State goes for it. I could hear you yelling at the TV, Cole, and I thought you were watching. They go for they run the ball on 2nd and 1, get nothing. They run the ball on 3rd and 1, get nothing. They got an elite running back on that team. What does conventional wisdom tell you to do on 4th down? Run the ball and get the first down. If you can get it, you deserve to win the football game. What do? They shotgun pass off to the right-hand side.
Makes sense.
And they get it for a touchdown. Like, this is the play that everybody's screaming, run the damn football. And they do the opposite. And it actually works in that situation. Momentum is completely shifted over to the Illinois State side of things. And then they have an opportunity, Cole. They have an opportunity to win the football game on a field goal. They're tied. And then, oh, no, bad snap. The kick isn't good. And it's going the opposite direction. Montana State gets on the ball, runs it way back. It looks like they're going to have an opportunity to kick a game-winning field goal in regulation. And then, oh, no, a bad snap sends the ball back 25 yards. They're out of range. Nothing they could do.
Overtime.
They go to overtime.
Yeah.
You get into overtime. Illinois State scores the touchdown on the opening possession. And then, oh no, they screw up the kick again. And then you go back the opposite direction. Montana State on 4th and
sounds like bad football.
4th and ball game. 4th and ball game, Cole. They throw a touchdown in the corner of the end zone to who? Taco gets the reception. They kick the PAT. It's good. Confetti falls. Just a phenomenal back and forth ping pong game. It was a really clean game.
Yeah.
Until they got to that little stretch.
It just ran out.
Nobody could kick a field goal.
Ran out of gas. I did watch the Taco Dowler. Is that right?
Yep. That's
highlights. Right. Just short white kid. I mean, just getting it done. By
the way,
his
his brother's nickname growing up was Burrito. And he said, enough. I'm not going by Burrito. Yeah. Taco's a nickname. It's not his real name. His brother's name was Burrito, and he said, all right, well, I'll be John instead. I'd rather be John instead of Burrito.
So you're telling me we're putting nicknames on rosters?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taco Dowler. I have no idea. Now, here's the deal on that. In high school, he was Montana's Gatorade Player of the Year, which is, one player from the state wins Gatorade Player of the Year. He played receiver, defensive back, kick returner, and punt returner in high school. So in high school in Montana, he was like do-it-all kind of guy. First team, all-state, again, Gatorade Player. I am surprised.
A hay bale over the mountains.
But here's the reason I bring this up. Why is that guy not playing FBS college football?
Stop trying to take him away from Montana
I want to see
State.
Him on the high level.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. He's good.
Stop strip mining all of the elite FCS programs just so you can bury him on a depth chart somewhere.
He sounds like he would be a good college receiver. It may be like a G5. Look,
is it such a crime to love your university and to want to stay and win with the group of players that you were recruited with? You love these guys. You love your coach. You want to stay as long as you possibly can. Why is that such a foreign concept?
Well, nowadays? The problem is he's 5'8". That's the reason. I mean, that's why he's at Montana State. That is 100% why. If he was 6'1", 6'2", he'd be playing at, a lot of colleges would be after him, but he's 5'8". Diesel, I'm like 5'8", 5'8" short. You know that. So he's a short white guy, incredible athlete though. And he's just a junior, a junior. A Hunter Renfro-esque kind of guy. Can play the slot. I mean, it was fun watching the highlights. It was chaotic, like you said at the end. But in a game like that, if you want the nation to tune in and have something to look forward to, I mean, that chaos is a good thing.
The best thing that they possibly could have done, and I appreciate the calendar being what it is and not a whole lot happening right now because the CFP is not going to be played until Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
The NFL is done with its season. It got the Monday night primetime slot, and it was beautiful. The game played out phenomenally. I mean, it could have been one of those games where Montana State goes on a route and they beat them,
Kill them
35.
Nobody's
7.
watching.
Nobody's watching.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. I saw the biggest accounts in sports punditry talking about this game, and they're all talking about not only how great the game is, but how much they love the purity of FCS football.
Yeah.
And to me, it was a thing of beauty, and it makes me miss those days.
Well, let's just get one of our local teams involved again. I know you mentioned the power.
Where you at, Furman?
That's right. Let's get back to that. I mean, now again, those are really good football teams.
Yeah.
And no offense, but our local teams just aren't on that level right now. They're not. Those are solid football teams. It's about as good as you get. The gap between them and FBS we can talk about, but to your point, it's really good football. And congratulations to both teams, but Montana State getting it done. And I guess it's also good to see not the Dakotas winning it every year.
Second natty for Montana State. They won one in 84.
Oh, okay.
And they played for a couple of them over the last few years. Finally got over the hump. So proud of those guys. A phenomenal football game. Watch it. If you haven't watched it yet, go back and watch it. It is a classic.
Bobcats, right?
Bobcats,
Montana State Bobcats, national champions at the FCS level. Diesel, there was a piece of news that put me in a really good mood this morning. I want to get to that, but I also have something to say regarding one of my teams that is very, very painful to say, but maturation is taking place. I'm recognizing something, Diesel, and I'm going to say something that really pains me in the very next segment.
Upstate.
Well, Diesel, there was a piece of news this morning that made me really, really happy, really, really giddy, and it was that the Cowboys have parted ways, fired Matt Eberflus, who, let's ask this question, why was he ever hired in the first place, right? He was terrible in Chicago.
Is firing day the best day of the season for a Cowboys fan?
It's the best. Even though nothing changes, it's still the best. It's like maybe something will be different. So I tweeted this out over the weekend, and it's taken me 30 years to come to this realization. But I am now landing at a spot where I think I should have been a long, long time ago.
Therapy?
Well, close. And to be fair, I won't stay here forever. I'll be right back in the Gatorade in a minute, in a couple of months. But I think my big, bold prediction, big, bold take, maybe it's not so bold, Diesel. I tweeted this out over the weekend. And reading these stats from Dak Prescott, I was blown away. So 2025, Dak Prescott had an unbelievable season. I mean, like MVP caliber season. 4,552 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 picks, 6 300-yard passing games, Pro Bowl, all-time leader in Cowboys passing yards history, all-time leader in Cowboys completions, a historic year for Dak Prescott. With that being said, I tweeted out, and I stand by this today. It pains me to say this, but Diesel, I believe Dak Prescott this offseason should ask for a trade out of Dallas. He's way too good for us.
I would.
I mean, it's time. It kind of like Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford in Detroit just never worked out.
Sure.
Right? And then he goes to LA, and what happens? He wins a freaking Super Bowl within, a couple of years with Sean McVay? I think Dak Prescott this offseason should say, you know what? I know I'm under contract, but I'm done here. Jerry, you're a joke. I want to go win a Super Bowl, and I think Dak Prescott should request a trade.
Man, wouldn't Dak look good in Steelers gold and black? Come on.
I hadn't thought about that.
If Aaron Rodgers says, all right, guys, this is it. I'm done. I'm gonna ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
You bring in Dak Prescott to fill in, and all of a sudden you've got a winning, a playoff game winning caliber roster.
Dak and Mike Tomlin.
Maybe the best quarterback Mike Tomlin's had in a long time. I mean, no disrespect to Aaron, but he's old AF.
He's old, and Dak's still kind of like in his prime. I hate to say it. It pains me because I love Dak Prescott, but here I am, Diesel, as a Cowboys fan, and I've seen now a couple of good quarterbacks come through, like Tony Romo was really good, and not win a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott, here's why I say this. I think the world of Dak Prescott as a person and as a player, right, through what he's gone through off the field to what he does on the field. I don't think there's a better guy in that locker room that does a better job off the field than Dak Prescott. I am a fan of his. And because I am a fan of his, I want to see that guy win. I want to see that guy win a championship. And I just don't think it's going to happen in Dallas. So here I am officially telling Dak Prescott, if he's listening, you should request a trade. Pittsburgh's a good option. I hadn't thought of that. When I tweeted that out, a couple of Panther fans said, hey, we'll take him in Carolina, right? Of course.
Yeah, we will.
But Pittsburgh's interesting.
I've been a Dak hater, but I'll be Dak's biggest fan if he comes to Charlotte.
He's just too good, Diesel. He's too good. I mean, year in and year out when he's healthy, he's at the top of the league in completion percentage, QBR, passing yards. But because he's in Dallas, and because this year he had one of the worst defenses in the NFL under Matt Eberflus, they couldn't sniff the playoffs.
I mean, think about putting Dak on this Carolina Panthers roster. He's got Tat McMillan. He's got a really good defense behind him.
Better.
Going to get better and better. I still don't know about Dave Canales, but come on. Bryce would be a great backup to Dak Prescott.
Just let Dak call plays, right? Who cares what Dave Canales thinks? I don't know.
Being a Dallas Cowboy fan just feels like it's so toxic.
Oh, it's bad. You have no idea.
It's like being in that relationship with somebody that the loving is really good, and that's why you keep coming back. But man, as soon as y'all start living together again, start sleeping over, those little cracks start to form again.
And the bad part about what you said, which by the way is true, it's a cycle right now. I'm in the post-season clarity,
yep.
Right? But guess what? We're going to hire Brian Flores, hopefully, as the next DC. And in a few months, we're going to re-sign George Pickens. I'm going to be right back in saying that, we're going to win it all.
I saw one of those, deep fake videos where they put faces on top of existing like movie scenes.
Yeah.
And it was a scene from Radio when the coach is buying Radio some pie and he's trying to tell him, hey, the season's over. But you got Jerry Jones saying, all right, Radio, season's over. All right, where's my pie?
That is funny. That is a good scene. But here we are. That is who we are as Cowboy fans. There's no escape. It's like a drug. You just can't get off, man.
When we get back, Cole, let's dive back into the conversation about the college football playoff. If each of these teams loses, here is why. The Achilles heel for the 4 teams left in the college football playoff. Tolos, you can interact as well. 844-326-3663 on the Joye Law Firm text line. That's coming up next. Minecraft understands the assignment, Cole. If
for once
these teams, if these teams lose in the college football playoff, whether it be their semifinal games or in the national championship game, why will each of these teams lose? Miami, Ole Miss, Oregon, Indiana. I'm telling you, it was hard to figure out ways that Indiana could lose football games because they're only 14-0 and they look pretty dang perfect in most of their games all season long, Cole. But if they're going to lose, here's why they're going to lose. The Achilles heel for each of the 4 teams left in the college football playoff, 844-326-3663. The Joye Law Firm text line is how you can be a part of the conversation and on the stream on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for the Fan Upstate. Jump in and start chatting it up with us and the other Tolos.
What you're saying is you're trying to find a way an undefeated team that hasn't lost in Indiana can lose the game, right?
It wasn't easy. Okay?
I'm telling you.
It wasn't easy. It was easier by far in the matchup that we're going to see on Thursday night. The Miami Ole Miss game, that one felt a lot easier to find Achilles heels for both of these two teams. The other matchup, a little bit tougher. Oregon, really good team, playing good right now. Indiana, I mean, you might be running Sims one day and saying, is this 2025 Indiana team versus 2019 LSU? Who do we think would win in a heads-up matchup? That might be one of those people will have that conversation if they go on to win the national championship game. But let's start right there with Miami against Ole Miss. Which game? That's the Fiesta Bowl, right?
Yes.
Out in Arizona.
Fiesta Bowl is
Arizona.
The Fiesta Bowl is the Miami Ole Miss game.
Yep. So if Miami is going to lose to Ole Miss in this game, how do you think they do it, Cole? What will be the Achilles heel that costs them the game?
Miami, if Miami were to lose, which is what you're asking me.
Yeah.
I think, and I know this sounds very simplistic, Diesel, but I think just like when Nick Saban, toward the end of his career, had trouble defending really athletic quarterbacks like Deshaun Watson. What did we talk about with Nick Saban? All his defenses are always elite, but if he has to go against the Johnny Manziel type, a Deshaun Watson type, there's nothing that guy, even though he's that good of a defensive mind, there's nothing he can do. I think to answer your question, if you told me today that Miami loses, as good as Miami is defensively, guess what? Trinidad Chambliss makes plays. And you know what? Deshaun Watson beat some pretty good defenses when he was at Clemson as well by doing what? Just making plays. Johnny Manziel, you remember those highlights. He made plays. It didn't matter what you had drawn up. And you know what? Miami's physical. They're big up front. But Trinidad Chambliss has that X factor, man. So to answer your question, I think if they were to lose, it was just simply because Trinidad Chambliss was that guy on Thursday night.
He very well may be. He very well may be. My answer to that question is the opposite side of the football, and it's that Carson Beck just sucked in this game. And we've seen it. Now, the last couple of ACC regular season games, Carson Beck looked awesome, right? He was throwing for 290, 300, 320 in some of those games. He looked amazing. But that was against NC State, Virginia Tech, and Pitt.
Big difference.
Pitt's not a bad football team. I'm not throwing shade at Pitt. But in those games, Carson Beck was an assassin. He was really, really good. Now, fast forward that to the playoff games where they got to start playing really good defenses like A&M's defense, like Ohio State's defense, and all of a sudden that 290, 320 drops to 103 yards and 138 yards respectively in those two games.
And we saw that a little bit at Georgia now. We saw that a little bit with Carson Beck. And that was the
ability to look amazing, but he has the ability to look bad also.
And that was kind of like Georgia fans' knock that the entire time was, as good as that guy is at times in big games, he doesn't do enough. And that's why, I'm not saying quarterback plays the end-all, be-all, but if you just simply look at the two quarterbacks, Trinidad and Carson Beck, I think we all right now, maybe not all of us, but I think most of us would say we probably trust Trinidad a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right? Even though Carson Beck's really good. I know Madcraft will find a way that I'm making that, offensive toward Miami. I'm not. But I will say on the flip side of my argument, Diesel, it is more than just about quarterback play. While quarterback play is very, very important, what happens outside of that's meaningful. You look at Texas Tech, Oregon, physicality, defense of Oregon was elite. And Miami, in my opinion, has that same caliber of defense. So I think it's interesting. I think to my answer and your answer, what we now watch on Thursday, Diesel, is quarterback play the end-all, be-all? Or is there more to it? I think Thursday's going to be fascinating.
Of course, Badcraft is taking offense to anything that makes it sound like Miami could lose this game. That's the whole point. We're splitting hairs here, okay? These are all really good.
He wants us, Diesel, to say Miami's 100% going to win. I mean, what good radio would that be?
And then you get mad at us for saying, but you said they would win the game.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. Look, Miami's offensive line is amazing. They're really, really good. But guess what? Ole Miss has a really good defensive line as well, and they come at you from multiple angles, right? They got Cam Franklin, a defensive end, who's really good. Will Eccles and Xavier Harris, a little more on the interior side of that defensive line. They can come at you from any of those different directions, and I fully believe that Miami's offensive line is going to be able to keep Carson Beck clean. But is Carson Beck going to be crisp? We've seen him look out of sorts at times, especially when he gets pressured. I mean, we're talking good on good here, okay? If the line can protect him and the other line can't get to him, it's going to be on Carson to perform. And we've seen at times Carson Beck just doesn't perform.
No, I'll tell you this, I could actually see both quarterbacks throwing a pick Thursday.
Yeah.
Carson and Trinidad. And that's just because of how much I think of Miami's defense, not just their front seven that's talked about a lot because of how good they are, but also their back end, their secondary is really good. So going back to what I said in the first segment, I could see Diesel, this being a shootout. I could see a little bit of chaos, back and forth, fireworks, and then all of a sudden, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, something has to give. Who's going to make that adjustment? But your answer, my answer, I could actually see both of them happen.
What I like about Trinidad Chambliss is, no, he hasn't been here on this stage before, but he won a national championship last year. And winning championships is hard no matter what level it is that you're playing. You have to be poised and you have to step up in the biggest possible moments. Carson Beck couldn't do that when he was at Georgia, and he's had 1 year. This is the biggest opportunity he's got. Madcraft, by the way, if you got a problem with what we're saying, you can always call in and argue against us.
Yeah, phone lines are open.
And the whole point here, the whole point of this conversation is to find the Achilles heel. What could cause this team to lose a football game at this point in the season? We're not making our predictions of what will happen. We're talking about what could happen. How about Ole Miss, Cole? How about Ole Miss, the Running Rebels? If they lose to Miami, why will it be that Ole Miss loses to Miami? I'm going to say, Cole, that they just are out of sorts on the coaching side of things. Bad decisions at the wrong times. Biggest game of Pete Golding's career as a head coach. It's only his, second game as a head coach. So it's going to be really third game, excuse me. It's going to be fascinating to see how the decision-making from the coaching side plays out in this game, because we know they're really, really good. We know they're talented, and they have the dudes to go beat Miami. But if you're in a tight situation, does Pete Golding, does he screw up and mismanage the clock in some way? Does he burn a timeout when he doesn't need to burn a timeout? Does he find himself without timeouts late when he really wishes he still had one left?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I don't know, Diesel, if there's enough made about what you just said. This is Pete Golding's, third game as a head coach?
Yep.
And he's not playing Southern Miss. He's not playing Furman. No disrespect to Furman. Like, this guy, I know he's been in the system, but the first 3 games, potentially 4, of his head coaching career are college football playoff games. That is insane, first of all. So, no, I could see that. If that's your reason that you give as to why Ole Miss could lose the game, I could see it. And now this week, more turbulence, more turmoil, Diesel, with the coaching staff. I'll tell you this, to counteract what you just said, counterpoint, if they do find a way to win, Pete Golding deserves so much credit for holding that thing intact, right? If Ole Miss finds a way to pull it out Thursday, even with all this coaching stuff going on, that guy deserves a lot of credit. There's a lot to be said about the coaching staff.
Is there a postseason coaching staff award?
Should be
postseason coach of the year? That would be, I mean, to be able to, if he does end up going on to win a national championship, that would be
give him coach of the year.
Phenomenal story.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Give him coach of the year for 4 5. I don't care. Give him coach of the year.
Leprechaun of Lyman texts in and says, if Miami loses, it's because Carson Beck laid an egg. He also says, dude, I was just about to text in about poor coaching. We're literally thinking the same thing.
Well, it's a possibility.
And another texter says, why aren't we talking about Carson Beck's sister? I don't know what you're talking about, texter. What's going on? You tell me. You can call into the show.
Let us know.
844-FAN phone. I don't know what's going on with Carson Beck.
Is she good looking or something?
Does he have a sister? Is she dating Trinidad Chambliss all of a sudden? Who knows what's going on?
So I guess this one's tough for me. The question, if you told me Ole Miss were to lose, why would they lose? You know, I do think veteran quarterback play matters. And I know a minute ago I said I think Trinidad's just a more athletic quarterback. So I'm not going to go quarterback again here because I do believe in Trinidad Chambliss. If you told me Ole Miss loses, I think it's just because of their defensive unit. Ole Miss defensively, they don't rank high. They didn't rank high in the nation. I think they were in the 30s, Diesel, during the regular season. So if I were to answer the question, I think the veteran presence of Carson Beck, the weapons he has, plus Ole Miss's defense, not being the best, I think that's the reason I would point to and say, if they lose, they just didn't hold up on the back end, even though Pete Golding's a defensive guy.
Well, yeah, to me, that says that their defensive line, the guys that I was just talking about, couldn't get any penetration against this Miami front. I mean, if they let Carson Beck sit back there with time, and if Carson Beck is on in this game, two big ifs. The Carson Beck being on is a bigger if than the O-line holding up. But if that happens, then they could pick them apart because they got so many skill guys all over the field to the Miami Hurricanes. Cole, now over to the other one. It's harder to find issues with both of these teams in the Friday matchup. This is the Peach Bowl down in Atlanta. Oregon taking on Indiana, a rematch of a game we saw back in October. Oregon lost that football game at home, 30-20. How could Oregon fall and lose this football game?
Well, if Oregon loses the game, which I could very much see happening, I think at the end of the day, a couple of things, but I'll give you one answer. I would say I do believe that Indiana is the more complete team going in, but the answer that I'm going to give is very, very simple. I think at some point, and I read these stats off in the very first segment, we just have to tip our hat to Fernando Mendoza. And that guy's elite. Like, that guy's going to go play for the Las Vegas Raiders, unfortunately, and his career will be over, right? But that guy is special.
So disrespectful.
It is. Diesel, that guy's different. And you know what? I think his football IQ isn't talked about enough. He's a very smart quarterback. So to answer your question with Oregon, if they lose, I just think they get Mendoza'd. I just think Mendoza's that good of a quarterback. I think Oregon's a very, very talented football team. I could see Oregon winning the game, but quarterback play, I'm big on this. I've said it a million times. It matters. They touch the ball every play, just about every play. And at the end of the day, nobody in 2025 has given us a way or a recipe, Diesel, on how to stop Fernando Mendoza.
That's true.
He has an answer for everything, which I think if you're Dan Lanning and that defensive staff is scary. I talked about his success, 8 of 8 against the blitz versus Alabama, his big playability. There's just been no proven formula yet this year on how to beat the guy, and that scares me.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon, though, they found a way to shut down another elite quarterback, Texas Tech's Baron Morton. He was really good. Not Fernando Mendoza good,
sure,
but he was really good. You know, he was almost a 3,000-yard passer this year, 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the season. A really good quarterback. They completely shut him down in that game, Cole. So Oregon found a way. Their defensive staff found a way to shut down an elite quarterback. They're not going to shut down Fernando Mendoza. They're just simply not. They're not going to blank him, and they're not going to hold him to 7 points. But if they can hold him to 21, then you got a shot, because this Oregon team, really good, and they can score in bunches really fast. James Madison found that out the hard way.
The problem is, Diesel, that guy's seen so much that, like, if you're Oregon, you think coming into the game, your game plan defensively is, hey, let's throw things at him Let's do some things in coverages defensively that he hasn't seen, some smoke and mirror stuff. And that might work if Dan Lanning and that Oregon staff comes in with an elite game plan defensively. But what worries me is like that guy's seen a lot. Mm-hmm. He's seen Oregon. And it's easier said than done. Sometimes good playmakers just find a way, somebody is going to put this graphic together at some point, but can we make it happen in real life where we get a Dan Lanning, Kurt Signetti stare down? Like, the UFC fight posters where you got them looking at each other. I mean, I know they do the weigh-in and all that, but they make the poster where it looks extra tough. Can we get that? Signetti and Lanning, that would be a fun one to look at. This is the hardest one for me to find a real flaw in either of these teams because Oregon was down to this very same Indiana team, and they found a way to fight back and tie it up early in the fourth quarter when they weren't playing well in the first half. Like I would say Oregon getting down by 2 scores or more, they'd have a hard time fighting back. But again, they can score like crazy really fast. And on the other side, what could cause Indiana to lose this football game? Honestly, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question. They've got dudes all over the field. Mendoza is great. They got a 1,000-yard back in Roman Hemby. They got a 900-yard receiver in Omar Cooper Jr. They can beat you in so many ways. Maybe the bus running out of gas on the way to the stadium is the only thing it's only going to cost Indiana the game. No, this one's tough. There's no doubt. You would at some point maybe think, okay, if you're Oregon, what is Oregon known for? Scoring, going. You would think, well, the way to beat them is getting the track meet with them. Well, the problem with that is this year Indiana scored 56, they scored 73, they scored 63, they scored 38, 56, 55, 56 again, and they scored 38 on Alabama. So it doesn't look like that pail holds much water. Right. The idea of, hey, if you can get into a track meet, you can be, well, they can run fast too. So I'm with you. I don't know. I guess I would say, and this one's easy, this one's simple, but here's the catalyst. To answer your question, because you asked, and I am going to give you an answer, it is a very difficult question to answer, Diesel, but I'll say this. What's the one thing at any level, high school, college, pro, that can cause you to lose a game? Doesn't matter what level it is. The one thing is turnovers. If Oregon can turn Indiana over, the great equalizer in football is turnovers. So I know that's a very plain Jane vanilla kind of answer, but if you go into that game and you're Oregon, and as good as Indiana is, if you can win the turnover margin, I think Oregon wins the game. So I think the majority of people are going to be taking the over, whatever the over-under total is going to be. But let's just say it's under, Cole. Let's say we're in a tight, either of these teams putting up around 20, 25 points. Who do you trust to get it done if it's a low scoring game? Indiana. Really? Yeah. Really? I mean, Oregon did have that game against Iowa where they won 18-16. And they held Texas Tech scoreless. That means a lot too. I think it's going to be a great game. That's going to be a good one. I do. I'm looking forward to it. Also looking forward to the first time this year, Rocco Miller. He's the best when it comes to college basketball. He'll join us every Tuesday at 4:22. And look at the clock. It's 4:22 almost. And Tuesday. And that means it's time for us to talk college hoops with Rocco Miller next. it. Well, it is time to talk a little college basketball, and we will talk college basketball every Tuesday on this show in this very time slot with Rocco Miller, who we had on the stream, but we lost him. So maybe we'll get him right back. Rocco Miller, a fantastic guest, college hoops analyst, bracketologist for bracketeer.org. Make sure while we are efforting Rocco back, make sure you give him a follow on Twitter, on X. If you haven't done so already, I am letting them know that we lost him. As soon as, I guess he saw our faces.
These two weirdos? Absolutely not.
These clowns, are you kidding me? But he is on Twitter, on X, at Rocco Miller 8. He's got 16,000 plus followers, does a great job on X. And, Diesel, we neglect on purpose college basketball for a few weeks because of college football overlap. But guess what? Football season's fading away. It's time for us to – I know it is sad. It's time for us to dive in more to college basketball with Rocco.
You got to be willing to jump in and realize, hey, these teams are 12, 13, 14, 15 games into their season at this point. They're starting to round into form. There's some big-time out-of-conference matchups early in the season, but everybody's still kind of – finding their sea legs at that point. But now everybody's getting into conference play.
Yeah.
Some really good games on tonight. Michigan taking on Penn State. That's the number 2 team. Duke Louisville is going to be a phenomenal basketball game tonight.
Some good games tonight.
Jump right in. Don't waste any time.
It really is going to be fun tonight. And I believe we are in the process of getting Rocco back as there's some big time matchups tonight. Again, later in the show, I believe it's the 5:45 segment. We will look at tonight's games in college basketball. But you're right. It's a fun time of year. And, again, we neglect it because of the overlap with football. And here it is. Here we are now with college football fading away and the NFL season coming to an end. We absolutely cover Clemson and South Carolina. And guess what? They're both interesting stories for opposite reasons. Clemson starting to turn the corner. South Carolina not so much. So we'll see. By the way, he is going to join us via phone today.
We'll fix it. Yep.
And he has bad service.
Yeah, video is tough. It's hard to always get a good, clean, crisp.
I'm sending him the number.
So let's he has just jumped out of that studio. I think he's going to be joining us.
I'm still going to stand by the theory that he saw who we were, saw our faces, and was like, not going to hop on with them.
These guys, no.
Yeah. Am I looking at a radio show here? I mean, what are we doing? So I do believe we have him now on the phone lines. Rocco Miller, incredible college basketball guest. Rocco, we gave you a sensational intro, and the theory that we're going to stand by is that you hopped in the stream, saw our faces, and said, nope, I'm good. Is that right?
Hey, what's up, gentlemen? It's good to be back on with you. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No problem.
I was all good to go on my end, but I think there's just something with the stream. So glad we could connect via phone.
Absolutely.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you hopping on with us. We're excited to talk college hoops with you every Tuesday at this time. Let me ask you this. I was looking at the AP Top 25, Rocco, and I think it's interesting. Sometimes we kind of push teams to the back burner because of this overlap we have with football. You know, we cover Clemson and South Carolina very heavily here with us being in South Carolina. But do you notice a lot of tendencies with these college programs and maybe having slow starts like a Clemson who lost to BYU, lost to Alabama, but since then haven't lost a single basketball game in over 20 days now? Is that something that you, in the way that you cover college basketball, just are accustomed to slow starts for teams?
Yeah, traditionally it's been a common theme. You know, I think over the years, over the decades, really, there's several phases to the season. It's the longest season in any Division I college sport is the men's college basketball, and I guess the women's college basketball is about the same now as well. To play 5 months of basketball, you're not going to get your best effort across 30-plus games. And so, you know, typically you use, you know, historically you would use the non-conference to learn about your team and really build up for a great run towards a conference championship. Now, obviously, times have changed a little bit with all the NIL money and all of the older rosters in Power 5. I think just in the last handful of years have drastically changed some of that because you are expected to perform at a high level from the opening day through non-conference and into conference, and then, of course, be at your best in March. But in general, still, even at that level, you know, I know Arizona, Michigan, and Iowa State are all flawless right now. But eventually, you know, a loss here or there can usually only help you. The chances of going something like 37-0 or 38-0 hasn't happened since the 1970s. So you can use a loss for good. Now, obviously, the way Clemson lost to BYU, you don't want to lose that way. But in general, I'm more looking for different things in terms of progress, in terms of different measurables that you track. We call them around here hustle stats. You know, deflections, defense, rebounding, offensive rebounding, your turnover ratio, how good of a team is at passing and sharing the ball. Those things will carry forward into growth and team buy-in. Whereas other teams, as you've seen in the past, right there in the ACC, you saw Miami last year. You've seen teams in that league before just have a bunch of individuals that never really come together. So I think those are the most important characteristics to look for at this stage.
Talking to Rocco Miller. He covers all of college basketball nationwide for Bracketeer.org. And Cole alluded to this as we were trying to bring you on earlier about how, you know, a lot of sports fans in general are still kind of sitting in that college football bubble. But as it's coming to an end, a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact that basketball, a lot of these teams are 15-plus games into their season. And to me, I picture kind of like coming home late at night and you start flipping on lights all over the house. You know, as you look across the national landscape, what kind of order would you say that regions of the country kind of flip that light switch on and say, okay, now it's basketball season. Now we're really into it. We're really paying attention.
Well, I think it's regional based, right? Like in the South, you're going to watch college football probably till the end, no matter what. I know last year was unusual to have Ohio State and Notre Dame, two northern teams, play for the title. And obviously Washington, Michigan before that. But I think there's just such a ingrainment of college football in Southern culture. And, you know, obviously a lot of Midwest places, East, in some of the bigger metropolitan cities, which I think is what makes the Big East special. You know, college basketball is more king in places like New York City and D.C. and a few of the other Midwest towns like Indianapolis. So it's fascinating to me. You know, I grew up on the West Coast, but I am I'm a very proud Washington Husky alum and football fan of them. So, of course, 2 years ago, I was traveling around with the team, made it all the way to the championship. That was one of the coolest things. But I do think, like, I get it, that it's hard to break away as well with the NFL. Playoffs are just starting in the NFL. It drags on into February if you are still interested in the Super Bowl. And there's so many just entertaining things about football that you can't deny. But I do think the interesting thing about basketball is, especially here in college basketball, we have a committee of people, 12 people, that decide who makes the tournament and who doesn't and what seed they get. And so every game from November on is just as important. And so I'm just as dialed in personally as I will be later in the year. So for me, it doesn't change much. So I actually have a hard time gauging it because I'm flying around from city to city and, driving from town to town to see teams play. But I think it is fascinating. I think we kind of wake up around mid-February and I'm like, oh my goodness, like thousands of people are coming onto the website now, and it's a daily thing. So it does get really exciting once football's out of the way.
Rocco, good parallel, bad parallel, or somewhere in between when you look at what Nebraska is doing. One of the best stories this season in college basketball, riding an 18-game winning streak dating back to last year. They entered the top 10 poll for the first time since 1966, coming off of a big win over Michigan State. They're now 14-0. Is this a Vandy story equating back to college football with NIL infusion and being able to get older players? How would you describe the why as to why Nebraska is making the history that they are?
Well, I think they've got a couple of big guys that have really, one of them blossomed a lot in Berkey, Bert, I don't want to butcher his last name, but Buktenko from Turkey, played for UCLA in the past. He was really raw. He's now finally a junior into his 20s. And his size is so hard to contend with at 6'10", 245. He's learning how to he's always been a really good passer, but he's really using his body well. And Rink Moss was injured for a lot of the last couple of years, really. Used to play in the Missouri Valley there at Bradley. And, he's an elite player at 6'10", 250. And so Nebraska's kind of copied Michigan's model in terms of playing two bigs together. And they still have elite shooters all around them with, Price Sanford shooting 38% from three. Moss himself shoots 38% from three, so he's a threat. And then Jamarcus Lawrence has had a great year as a guard. All those guys are 38% from three. So when you have shooters all over the floor, Nebraska's done a really good job of what we call pace and space, where it's really hard to defend all five positions. You have to take some chances defensively. They've done a really good job mastering that offense early on. Now, I would say, they had the big win was at Illinois early December. That's their best resume win. The Michigan State win, of course, they just grinded out a rock fight at home by 2. So by no means are they dominant. The Illinois game, they got off to a huge start and had to hold on for dear life. I think if that game goes 2 more minutes, they probably lose. So they're getting a little bit of good fortune, but obviously just the fact that they're in these games and that they've gotten this far, they've beaten Kansas State, Creighton, Wisconsin, and Ohio State now on the road. On top of all of that, is really, really difficult to do. It shows to their age. It shows to their confidence level and their experience. So I do think they'll be a tough out later this year, but I do think that they are probably owed somewhat of a rough patch. The Big Ten is very difficult to navigate. Their offense is barely squeezing into the top 50 metrically. And so typically the numbers, and there's enough games to be played, will catch up with a team like this. But what a great story.
Rocco, you talked about the Turkish big there at Nebraska. And I don't know if my question I'm about to ask you applies to him specifically, but maybe more in a general sense. There's a quagmire right now in college basketball as it relates to eligibility of foreign players, how some of them can go play professional ball overseas, come here and play college basketball, yet American players can't do the same thing. Can you make a little bit of sense of this quagmire for those who have not been as plugged into it as you are?
Well, yeah, it comes down to money, really. And that's the interesting thing, because there's been some examples. Ivicevic and a couple of others at Illinois are good examples. And now, of course, we see these mid-season additions happening at places like Oklahoma, Baylor, et cetera, right? I think there's a few other examples now as well. But the interesting thing is, I don't know the exact threshold. I'll look to get an answer for us for a future episode. But if you earned a certain amount overseas per year, basically the NCAA is counting that as a year of eligibility. So I know there's an example at Illinois where they have a qualifying sophomore because he only made a certain amount of money 1 year, and now he's got the earning potential to come here and play 3 more to be able to earn at that amount or higher. And that's basically what it's become is essentially a a threshold of how much you can earn. The Diego Pavia JUCO lawsuit is built around some of those same terms. So the reason why he won the lawsuit and JUCO players can play the extra year is because their argument is you can't make any NIL money playing JUCO. And so it's basically now what the NCAA is risk adverse to, at least so far, is challenging that in court to where a player can come and earn 4 years of income. And that's the best way to think of it. So I know there's a couple other examples where guys got deemed as juniors and seniors because they made 2 or 3 years worth of that kind of money. And so, like I said, I'll try to get us an answer on that exact amount, but that's how the NCAA is treating it under the new head, Charlie Baker. So as time goes on, I think that will continue to evolve and change, but that's how they're handling basketball players this season.
We're joined by Rocco Miller of Bracketeer.org. Rocco, what would you attribute the collapse of Todd Golden and company to? I mean, won a national championship last season, beat a really good Houston team, and now on the 6th day of January, they're receiving votes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't call it a full collapse at this point. I think if you added up all their losses right now, it equals about 17 total points. They were one possession away from one of the biggest wins in college basketball, losing by 1 point at Duke in Cameron.
Yeah.
So they're right there. I mean, they're to the wire with UConn, another elite team. I think the biggest thing is quite stark if you watch their games with the backcourt, trying to bring 2 transfers along, mainly with Xavion Lee, who struggled for about a month. And now Boogie Fland is really struggling. He had a poor shooting performance and another 2-point heartbreaker for the Gators at Missouri to open up SEC play. But if you look at the front court, it's still extremely elite. I think you could argue it's still the best in college basketball with the fearsome foursome of Chinyelu and Alex Condon. Getting him back was so huge. And then Micah Hangloten's still there. And Tommy Howe gets in there and rebounds all the time. So you look at the numbers right now, and Florida is the number 2 offensive rebounding team in the country and the number 5 defensive rebounding team. And that's more consistent than any guard play anywhere. So I think their foundation is really, really high, and they've slipped about as far down as you could possibly project them to be with the amount of losses they've already taken. Now, I know that's been really frustrating. Losing to teams like TCU and Missouri certainly doesn't match the level of talent that they have, but there's a long ways to go. And if a team's going to get hot and really kind of do it predictably, I think Florida has a good case for that. But they really got to get their backcourt coming along, and their backcourt needs to defend a little bit better too, in all fairness. I think the front court does tremendously well, both offense and defense. So they've got that locked in. Now it's just about those guards getting more comfortable in the system. And I think with more games, that should come. Those guys are, Boogie Fland was a top 10 recruit and played really well for Arkansas late last year. Remember, he struggled early last year too. So I do think Florida has plenty of reasons to be hopeful still.
Rocco, as you look at the next couple of games that the Clemson Tigers have coming up, a ranked SMU tomorrow at 9:00, Notre Dame, BC, Miami, NC State. Who are the guys that, as you look over those rosters, that if you're Brad Brunell, if you're prepping for those teams, kind of scares you the most, the real dudes that are on those rosters?
Yeah, well, first of all, Clemson, these last 2 games really impressed me. They won on the road at Syracuse, who's a team that's still in the hunt and had some good results in non-conference. And they, of course, won at Pittsburgh after that. Again, hard to win on the road anywhere, especially in a much improved ACC. And I think what they've done so well is now they have about the 26th best defense in America, and they're almost top 10 in defending the perimeter. Now, of course, with any 3-point defense, some of that is luck dependent. But with the older Clemson roster, right place, right time, really good system defensively, good communication. I was really impressed with Justin Porter last week. So that's where I'd start with Clemson. But I think in terms of opposition, SMU's coming off of an amazing performance against North Carolina. Boopy Miller is the straw, of course, that stirs that drink. You saw him last year, but he had 12 assists in the North Carolina game. He can score plenty of points. And they also have Deron Pierre next to him. It's a Batman and Robin type of situation. Pierre was the Conference USA Player of the Year for Jacksonville State and can really make a bucket in a moment's notice. So they have 2 extremely clutch players at SMU. I'm really impressed with the roster build. They have a couple of centers that they rotate, led by another Turkish man, Samet there. And so I think you have your hands full with SMU on paper, but you do get them at Little John. So, again, a big advantage playing at home. And then when you go to Notre Dame, I think there's some breaks built in terms of Marcus Burton being out for the season. So not having to deal with Mr. Burton anymore, who's an all ACC level talent. That's a shame that he's gone. But Jalen Harrelson's a big-time freshman that's basically taken over the Burton role. So, again, we'll see if Clemson can make him force him into a lot of freshman mistakes. We've seen Harrelson really struggled at Stanford in that ugly 47-40 win last week. But I think with the rest of Notre Dame, the thing you got to worry about is Shrewsbury, his defensive system really has thrown fits at a lot of teams already this year. It helped them pull off the upset at TCU. It helped them force Stanford to 23% shooting. And what he does is a mixture of different matchup zones and really takes away the middle of the floor. So Brad Brownell is one of the most prepared head coaches, and that Clemson staff is one of the most prepared staffs. I expect them to be ready for it, but it's going to be tricky to navigate, and that game could get pretty gross, just to warn you.
Rocco, you're the best, man. Really appreciate your time today. And we are looking forward to talking to you on Tuesdays, talking college hoops. Always appreciate you, man.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. I'm looking forward to it, fellas. You have a great rest of your day.
You too, and Happy New Year one more time, Rocco Miller. He's the best, and just a wealth of knowledge Diesel when it comes to college basketball.
Yeah, I'm excited to pick his brain all season long. Kind of, you get into the first time we bring him on, sort of a little more general.
Yeah.
Then we get tighter and tighter and deeper into the weeds.
Does he know every player's name in the country just
off
about?
the top of his head? It's incredible.
It's incredible.
My brain does not work that way.
He's the best, man.
Fascinated by people who have that ability. When we come back, Cole, let's do our whip around the sports world, see what else is going on out there in our daily wires. always try to go local. We try to go right to what you want to talk about every single day, but there's a lot more out there, Cole, and we get to it all in this segment called Our Daily Wires. The Dallas Cowboys have fired their defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, and Cole is rejoicing.
Thank God.
Yeah,
that was a horrible hire. I mean, Diesel, it was.
Is that confetti falling out of your pocket?
Yes. It was. I mean, think about this. All seriousness. He was horrible in Chicago. And you bring in a first-year head coach and Brian Schottenheimer and say, hey, we're going to give you Matt Eberflus?
Yeah.
What? Bad hire.
I mean, maybe you think you screwed it up in enough ways. Maybe you'll get lucky this time and not screw it up. By the way, Dallas was 23rd in the league against the run this year, 30th overall in total defense.
Not good.
Dead last against the pass.
Not good.
Last night, Montana State won its second FCS national championship and its first since 1984 in a barn burner against Illinois State. The game had 2-score leads, epic comebacks, ball carriers hurdling defenders, 2 blocked kicks, a 4th and 10 game-tying touchdown throw in overtime to a guy named Taco. It was an instant classic, and if you didn't watch it, man, you really missed out.
And Taco Tuesday.
Every day should
be
Taco Tuesday now. LSU's administration is allowing offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. and running backs coach Kevin Smith to continue coaching Ole Miss in the college football playoff. Very nice of them. Both are flying back and forth between Baton Rouge and Oxford for recruiting visits. However, tight ends coach Joe Cox and passing game coordinator George McDonald are not expected to coach in the Fiesta Bowl against Miami tomorrow.
It's almost like at this point, you just say, no offense, if you're Pete Golding, I don't want any coaches. I'm going to do it all because I want the message to be clear. I don't think there's enough being made about that, man.
I mean, could you not say Lane Kiffin could ask these guys to sabotage the team? Because LSU certainly doesn't want Ole Miss winning a national title. Much to the chagrin, by the way, of Lane Kiffin, running back Kawan Lacey announced he has reached a deal to stay at Ole Miss for the 2026 season, as has quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. Of course, that is assuming that he gets the waiver from the NCAA to play.
Well, let me tell you something. If those two come back, those are 2 really good players.
How is it that the NCAA has any power to grant or deny waivers when they have no power in the game regardless?
That's a good question.
It's fascinating.
Nobody knows.
A day after announcing that he was transferring from Notre Dame to Nebraska, redshirt sophomore quarterback Kenny Minchie flipped his commitment to Kentucky instead. So he was a Cornhusker for less than a day.
Lasted long, didn't it?
I know. Bryce Underwood is coming back to Michigan. So if you are a Wolverines fan, you got to feel good about that. He is back in blue. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is open to a move after he was benched for the final 3 games of the 2025 season, asked if he'd like a fresh start after the events of the season. He said, that would be dope. I would be good with that.
It'd be what?
Dope.
Okay, gotcha.
Dope. The Carolina Hurricanes, by the way, if you're not watching hockey, still sit atop the Metropolitan Division with a 25-14 record overall. And finally, Cole, NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps has announced that he is resigning after more than 20 years with the racing series. He had a federal trial. He had some inflammatory texts against Richard Childress, of all people, an absolute legend in the sport, in which he called him a, quote, stupid redneck who needs to be taken out back and flogged. He is no more the commissioner of NASCAR.
So real quick, back to that Carolina Hurricanes comment. Yep. The what did you call it? Metropolitan Division?
Division, yeah.
Is that like strawberry? They have chocolate and vanilla. I mean, how does that
That's
work?
Neapolitan.
Oh, gotcha.
Neapolitan.
It sounds
not
good,
Napoleon.
Not Napoleon.
Right.
I don't know. I think we should change it. Yeah. I like it.
Here would be a fascinating game. Can Cole name any of the divisions
in hockey?
No, not including the Metropolitan.
Neapolitan. The Neapolitan Division. That's when you said that, my mind went to ice cream.
I don't
know why.
There are 4 divisions. I've given you the Metropolitan. Could you venture a guess?
No. I literally, you said Metropolitan. I guess I'm hungry. I wanted Neapolitan. I don't know. No.
There's the Met. Okay. There's the Atlantic.
Oh, Pacific.
Those are in the Eastern Conference. There is the Pacific Conference
Yes.
and the Central Conference.
Oh, well, that's I mean, it's just
Central Division, excuse me.
just freaking directional. Is that all it is?
Well, it doesn't make any sense. You got Atlantic and Metropolitan, and then Central and Pacific.
All right, Diesel, both
Dumb.
programs, Clemson, South Carolina, they've had a few nights to sleep on the end of the season, and there's a lot going on in the portal with both programs landing some big-time talent yesterday and today. Which program do we feel more confident about at this point in the offseason, and what are they doing in the portal? We'll get to it next. Well, not only anymore in college football do you have to win the regular season, you also have to win the off season. And that is exactly what's happening right now as both Clemson and South Carolina, both in-state programs, fighting to build their roster before the portal window closes. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. The last hour for me as I'll be running off. We have Burns basketball on air tonight. It's Gaffney at Burns, a very big region game. I'll have the call for you starting at 7 o'clock for the pregame show. Lane Fowler interview around 7:20 tonight, and then tip again around 7:30. I can't say exactly at 7:30 because we don't know how long the girls' game will go or bleed over, but should be two really good games tonight between the boys and the girls. Again, Gaffney Burns, if you can't make it, I would love to have you with me on the call. You can also watch the Ingles court cam as well. I know Madcraft does. I see him logging on all the time watching. He has to look at me, which isn't a pleasant sight, Diesel, but he still gets to listen to the game.
Is it weird to think that Madcraft is just staring at you all the time?
It is. I've thought about it, but I mean, who wouldn't want to, right?
Think of other ways that you could monetize that, Cole.
That's not no comment. You're terrible.
I mean, there's
feed finder ads coming up next on the Fan Upstate.
Whatever
right?
you've got, somebody out there is freakishly into.
Oh my gosh! All right, Diesel. I am going to assign Jordan Kay of the state newspaper to you. I'm going to go to Grayson Mann as we go and look feverishly at everything happening right now for both programs, both in-state programs, because both programs today and yesterday have landed some off-season portal acquisitions. And, you know, I kind of said that tongue-in-cheek, Diesel, to open the segment, but in all reality, in this new era of college football, you know, the season's very important, right? We talk all year long about what happens on the field, but maybe one thing that this has benefited for people like us who talk for a living and talk about these teams, maybe one thing that it's done for us is that we now have a new season to talk about, right? Because it's not just the offseason.
Silly season is
right.
what it's called.
But used to, you go into the offseason and, you know, you have a break. You have a true break in college football. Not anymore. We know the way the schedule lays out, it happens late, you know, during the postseason, which is stupid, talking about the signing windows and the portal windows. We talked about this yesterday with Nick Saban's audio. But it is a complete new season that I think is going to show us for years to come, Diesel, just how good these coaching staffs are. Because you have to be good coaching during the season. We know that. You have to be good coaching from August to what? November. But then when November, the end of November hits, the beginning of December hits, you've got to be just as good from December to January, whenever that window closes, just like Stan Drayton talked about a couple of weeks ago, the new running backs coach for South Carolina. He said it. I asked him a question about recruiting. He was up north, right? Now he's in Columbia, South Carolina. A little bit different of a recruiting trail. He said some things about recruiting changes, but the bottom line is if you can play ball, I'm still going to come get you. So that leads us to both in-state programs, both Clemson and South Carolina. Let's start with the Tigers, Diesel, who had some big news yesterday and some big news today as well. We have a new linebacker on the Clemson squad. It is Cal linebacker, former Cal Golden Bear, Luke Farrelly. He can move sideline to sideline. He's a linebacker, I said. Tackles well, plays good in coverage. Clemson's new addition is probably going to be playing alongside Sammy Brown in that linebacker spot. So Luke Farrelly, one of the newest additions today, Diesel, but the second day in a row that Tom Allen has brought a player in from the portal.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm looking at Jordan Kay tracking the now commitment, Cole, of an interior offensive lineman. And oh my God, does South Carolina need it. Offensive lineman in spades? A guy that came out of high school, unrated, but is now rated as a 3-star transfer offensive lineman, Carter Miller. He is coming in as a senior, so he's got a lot of experience, spent some time at UCF, and is now going to be a South Carolina Gamecock for his final season. He's coming out of Brentwood, Tennessee.
Oh, that's Nashville area.
Ravenwood High School. Yep.
Yeah.
So a 3-star offensive lineman transfer. Not the sexiest acquisition. You'd love to see 4- and 5-star O linemen coming in, but right now you'll just take bodies.
Hey, he played for Kurt Signetti. He played at JMU in 23.
So he's a ping pong ball. He bounces from place to place to place to place.
Well, he was at Louisiana Monroe.
Goodness gracious. So 4 schools in 4 seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask Rocco Miller about this. This happened last week, Cole. Neither of us were here. Did you hear that great audio of Coach Cal saying, we put these kids in a position where they're transferring to 4 different schools in 4 seasons. They're not going to get a degree because there's no way that their credits will transfer from school to school. So they're going to come out of school with a little bit of money in their pockets. The ones that are not going off to the NFL are going to look around like, what do? I don't have an education. I don't have any prospects. I don't have any connections to any of these schools. A lot of the schools will help athletes find employment immediately after school. So it puts them in a weird spot. And
by the way, that was good audio. I played that on Tuesday, I believe it was. It was long, and I think I played the entire clip. He was on his I guess vent session. I mean, it was like 6 or 7 minutes of him just going off, and it was really, really good.
Can we put Cal and Nick Saban and
I thought about
I don't know
that.
who it would be for the baseball side of things? Put them all in a competition committee and say, we got one representative from the 3 major sports, and we're going to try to handle this thing with some class and dignity and common sense.
I'm with you. So in the last few days, hopping back to Clemson real quick, Diesel, Clemson gets today Cal linebacker Luke Farrelly. Again, he was on campus today. He was the 2025 ACC Defensive Freshman of the Year last year for the Golden Bears. So that's a big get. You also note that TJ Moore announced yesterday that he's coming back to Clemson, a big-time receiver for the Tigers. Not only is he coming back to Clemson, Diesel, when you look at prospects who are visiting Clemson, TJ Moore is doing a really good job on Twitter of helping in the recruitment process. You see that this time of year, right? Encouragement, I guess, is what you call it. You also have Memphis safety Chris Bracey. This is within the last few hours. Standout from Memphis, again, Chris Bracey. He visited Clemson this past weekend. There are 6 schools on his docket: Clemson, Michigan, Houston, Mississippi State, Iowa, and Arkansas. Those are the 6 schools that he's interested in right now. Again, a lot of these guys defense. Tom Allen said it. We need defense. Tennessee defensive lineman Jamal Wallace will visit Clemson tomorrow, January 7th. He was offered by the Tigers today, Diesel. So you're talking about a plethora of defensive weapons that are getting offers. I don't know if this is Dabo. I don't know if this is more Tom Allen, but somebody is recognizing defensively that was their issue this past season, and they're hot and heavy in the portal so far.
Well, I don't have to tell you that defense was not particularly a strong suit of the South Carolina Gamecocks either.
Right.
Got a little better on the line with redshirt freshman Jordan Thomas, who is coming in from Georgia. His rating has gone down a little bit after a year at Georgia. He was recruited to Georgia as a 4-star. Now he's rated as a 3-star. But still, if Georgia is recruiting you, you're a pretty good football player.
No doubt.
And you got to think he might have been buried on the depth chart. Not sure why he in particular decided to leave Georgia. But he probably will step into this South Carolina roster and be an immediate. I don't know if
he'll
starter.
play.
He'll play.
You got to play.
He'll play a lot.
They need more bodies.
Yeah.
Did you say he committed, by the way?
He is committed. Yes.
Okay, that's big.
That happened about 2 hours ago.
That's big. On the Clemson side of things, let me vent for a second. There's this kid, and no disrespect, there's a kid named Peyton Miller who tweeted out a few hours ago, and Grayson Mann retweeted this. Here's the tweet. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
This is what's wrong with our society in college football. I'm grateful and blessed for all the opportunities. I'm looking forward to the next handful of months and making a final decision. And then there's a graphic of his top, how many players? 11. There is no such thing as top 11. Top 11. Are we kidding ourselves here? He has logos of Florida State, Iowa State, Oklahoma, Arizona State, Penn State, Florida, Texas, Clemson, Wisconsin, Texas Tech, and SMU. His top 11. does that mean that all 11 schools have offered some sort of NIL deal? I would say probably so, right?
Why not just pick a card, any card? Just
Right.
grab one out of the deck and choose one, man.
It's crazy.
Does it really matter at that point? If they're all offering you more money than you were making, why not just pick a random one and go?
Oh, by the way, Diesel, former Clemson defensive lineman, I mentioned this name last week, Steph Green. He got in the portal at Clemson, and he is now transferred to LSU. So Steph Green has committed to LSU as of today. He had 18 tackles and 2.5 sacks this past season. Pretty good defensive lineman. He was the number 6 defensive lineman in the On3 portal ranking. So Stephia Green, Diesel, will play his first game for LSU against Clemson, his former team. Also, Tennessee defensive lineman Jamal Wallace has received an offer from Clemson. Wallace was a 3-star prospect from the 2024 class out of the JUCO cycle. Clemson offensive lineman Roman Bine is entering the transfer portal. A little bit of news earlier. So, I find it interesting 2 days in. Not 2 days, it opened Friday, but a few days in from the Clemson side of things. We know that TJ Moore announced yesterday his return. But Diesel, I do find this fascinating because Grayson Mann talked to you and I about this on the show yesterday. Clemson right now isn't doing a whole lot offensively. They're doing a lot defensively. And I think Tom Allen, going back to those comments that he made in that Tuesday press conference, you and I played the audio on the show, and Grayson talked about it yesterday, where he said, we've got to get guys who want to be here, who are fast. And he went on and listed like 5 traits, remember? I think Tom Allen, I don't know this, but I think Tom Allen may be the best thing that's happening to Clemson right now because Tom Allen recognizes, even though he may not like the portal, Diesel, I think he's recognizing that this Clemson defense had major holes, that there were some busts from last year's unit, a lot of players that were expected to be good that weren't. And that might be the best thing happening for this Clemson program right now, that you have a defensive coordinator that Dabo Swinney is trusting and allowing to go get guys out of the portal. Because if it weren't for him, would Dabo be going to get these guys?
That's true. Who would they be playing? They'd be pulling guys out of the stands at that point. Now, I was going to ask Grayson Mann this question when we had him on. Was that yesterday?
Yeah.
And ask, what's Dabo's – when Dabo doesn't want to use the transfer portal, but he knows he has to, what's his pitch? Is he saying, yeah, come on over to Clemson. It'd be great to have you. We would really love you. Or is he kind of pitching the play it forward, especially guys that have multiple years of eligibility left? Because, I know that Will Helt decided to come back for another season. I don't know about any of the other transfers that were on the roster this year, how many of them have more years of eligibility left after this. But Dabo really wants to focus on retention. So I'd love to know what that pitch is to say, hey, you're coming in as a sophomore, or you're coming in as a junior. You got 2 more years. I don't want to bring you in if you're just going to bolt on me in a year. I really want to have you here for 2 full seasons. We're going to take care of you on the back end. Maybe you can entice them to come in with the traditional, hey, rah, Clemson is great. You're going to love it here. We're a family. And then you kind of sow those seeds early and say, but we're also going to really take care of you on the back end. We're not going to pay you a lot up front, but if you stick around for another year after that, oh, baby, we're going to be able to line your bank account in some big ways.
I want to comment on something you said just now on the retention, Diesel. But first, real quick, some breaking news. This is huge. You ready for this? The Ravens have fired John Harbaugh.
Wow.
The Ravens have fired John Harbaugh, who was one of the coaches in the NFL for a long, long time, who's looked at and respected as one of the best coaches in the National Football League.
Wow.
And we talked about this yesterday with the Ravens' inability to get over the hump. We were joking with the defensive coordinator maybe coming to Clemson, right? Or the OC, Todd Monken. They have Lamar Jackson. They have Derrick Henry. They have Zay Flowers. And for whatever reason, they have not been able to get over that hump. And ownership saying today, we've got to go in a different direction. I understand it. I do get it. Harbaugh is a really good coach, so this is a bombshell firing. However, Diesel, when you have those 3 guys and Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers, guess what? You've got to win. You've got to win a Super Bowl, like, period. Those are three of the best players in the National Football League. Texter says there are still college jobs open, right? Harbaugh is going to get a phone call immediately. He probably will.
Yeah.
He probably will.
You look at his resume, though. He's kind of coached all over the place, right? He was a DB's coach with Philly. He was a special teams coordinator with Indiana. He was a special teams coordinator with Cincinnati. He spent time as a running backs coach and an outside. This is funny, running backs and outside linebackers when he was at Western Michigan all the way back in 1984. Madcraft has a very fun point. He says, come on over to LA and let the Harbaughs unite.
Well, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? It'd be interesting.
Could you imagine what Thanksgiving dinner would be like with those two?
It would be interesting. I think that is shocking news that Harbaugh's been fired. Obviously, they recognize that they have way too much talent to not make the playoffs. Diesel, one quick point on what you said about retention. And I understand retention, but I wanted to go back to something. You said a minute ago that Dabo Swinney's always been big on retention, right? Keeping the players that he has in the program. I believe that's how you worded it. I don't have an issue, and tell me if you disagree here. I don't have an issue with retention. If Dabo Swinney or any other coach out there wants to push and say that retention is top of mind, one of the biggest goals that he has, hey, we've got to have retention. The problem is, if you don't have the proper talent evaluation, retention can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed over the past few years with Clemson. You talk about retention all you want, but if you keep players who aren't good players, retention does not matter. And I think that retention myth was busted by Tom Allen, who came in from Penn State and took over a defense that had all these NFL starters, Diesel, Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, all these guys, Sammy Brown, Wade Woodaz, all of these NFL guys. And guess what? The retention did nothing in 2025. So you've got to evaluate talent the right way if you're going to have good retention. Because if you don't, like Dabo Swinney has done, I think that retention can come back to bite you in the you-know-what.
Well, how many times have we talked about his trust and his belief in himself and his own ability to evaluate talent? Now, obviously, it would appear on the surface that ability to evaluate talent has slipped just a little bit, or he missed quite a bit. But he also convinced himself that all of these guys were, in fact, elite talents, and maybe they just weren't getting the most out of him. I don't know. But he also doesn't want to push guys to the curb and say, hey, backup starting left tackle. We think the world of you, but it's not really working out.
Yeah.
He's not doing that, right? He has said, I am not going to cut anyone and tell them that they're not good enough. They will have a spot here. They will graduate from here. I mean, at some point when you have the ability to cut the bottom end, like everybody's looking for top end, but you got to find ways to kind of skim off the bottom end of the talent pool as well. You got to be able to do that. And Dabo doesn't want to do that. I get it. Like, you don't want to cut guys, but hey, he's been cutting guys his entire career. It's what you do. You have to cut guys to get down to a playable roster. And eventually you're going to have to cut guys to say, look, you're just not good enough to play significant snaps here. Well, you say, hey, go be great at a G5 school. You'll be phenomenal down there. And you still might get picked up and have a career in the NFL. But sorry, here at Clemson, we're trying to win national titles, not just make guys feel good by giving them roster spots.
Well, when you talk about Diesel Dabo Swinney's world being rocked, it's certainly been rocked in the past few years from a football standpoint when you look at the evolution of the game and the way the game's going with portal and NIL. But I think what rocked it the most was what happened this year defensively. I think Dabo Swinney, who's a very good coach and has been around a long time and has won national championships, I think Dabo Swinney went into this season, 2025, this past season, feeling as confident about that defense as he has about any other defensive unit. The way he talked at ACC kickoff, the way he talked to us in interviews, and the way he talked about this defensive unit, when you talk about the world that you live in being rocked and having to completely start over from scratch, I would say the defensive unit performing as bad as they did with all that NFL talent they had, as bad as they were against SMU, letting SMU drive right down the field, as bad as they were against Duke, letting Duke drive right down the field. I believe that in itself rocked his world more than anything, and that's why I think you're seeing this effort, a not conservative effort, an effort to go in the portal defensively and get guys, because Dabo Swinney knows that Will Helt was a great example of a guy who can come into Clemson, be a Clemson guy, and still contribute in a meaningful way.
Maybe use Will Helt as the model.
100%.
And go get some guys like him. Now you know what you're looking for. Like, it's not as scary as it once was to go into the transfer portal. You know what kind of guy you're looking for. Be willing to go get that guy. Doesn't mean you have to go get the troublemaker who is like 6'5" and an absolute burner at wide receiver, but go find the right guy in the portal.
Well, for what it's worth, as a fan, I'll take the troublemaker. I'll take the guy who just got out of jail. I don't care if they can play football. I'll take them. I say that tongue in cheek, but all kidding aside, they need football play. They need dudes.
But also, wouldn't Dabo want to fix that guy? Like, wouldn't he want to save that guy? Sort of in a football sense, evangelize that guy, get him into the program. Yeah, you were a troublemaker down at Georgia or wherever.
Well, if he wants to do that, work for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Don't coach my football team. If that's fair. I want to win, period. Mm-hmm. And by the way, also, in case you missed it yesterday, big piece of Clemson's pie, Elliott Washington from Penn State transferring to Clemson. Defensive back, played for Tom Allen 2 seasons ago. So that's a big piece of it as well. Yeah. Before we get to this phone call real quick.
Not a lot of big names have already signed with South Carolina. There are a few visits going on out there. There was a guy, last name Purvis. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. He's like a 6'5", 300-pound offensive lineman from Purdue who visited South Carolina, posted on his social media that he is interested in coming to South Carolina, or that he's visiting South Carolina at least, but has not signed yet.
Dan B's on the line, but he wants to talk NASCAR about the big news, and I know you've got that slated for the next segment.
That will be next. NASCAR is looking for a new commissioner. Cole, you going to apply for the job?
I am doing it right now. I've got the online application through Indeed.
I'll talk about it next. Ding dong, the dork is gone, Cole. NASCAR can finally heal and get back to its roots. We hope, because the big news announced in the last 24 hours is that NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps is resigning after 20 years with being with the NASCAR series. Now, he has done, I hesitate to say a good job. He has done a job transforming NASCAR into something that is unrecognizable compared to what it was 20 years ago. They expanded the international footprint. They got all kinds of media rights, which flung NASCAR broadcasts all over the place. It felt like it was in a different place, different location every single weekend. You had races in Chicago, races in New York, changes to the rules every single year, to the point that I didn't recognize the sport anymore. It wasn't what it looked like when I grew up and I stopped watching.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard for me to have a hugely strong opinion about this, other than the fact that, somebody who clearly doesn't love NASCAR is getting pushed out of NASCAR, which is a good thing. Josh Pate talks about this all the time on his show. The people who are in charge of running college football are not college football people.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Steve Phelps, who is in charge of running NASCAR, was not a NASCAR guy. Not in the traditional sense.
You bring that up, and the way I would, I guess, summarize what I've seen is it felt like there were, in any CEO, anybody who runs a sport, there are going to be things that we don't like. We don't like Roger Goodell for a million different things. It feels like Steve, in his time with NASCAR, there have been more stupid, boneheaded things than there have been things that we've thought, oh, well, this is a good move by NASCAR. And when the bad outweighs the good, what are we going to know him for? We're going to know him for the bad.
It was like a growth, but at what cost?
Right. And I understand some of his decisions to try to bring NASCAR to more eyeballs. I get that. Your job, Roger Goodell's job, Diesel, your job, my job, our job is to bring more eyeballs and ears to what we do. That is our job. However, I do think you're onto something. NASCAR 20, 30 years ago, everybody knew NASCAR for one thing. And now when you fast forward all the way to 2025, 2026, NASCAR is not known for that one thing anymore. I'll give you an example. And this is me. I'm going to nitpick hard. And this is going to sound, you might not like this, but I'm going to say it. I am from the South, right? Some people would say I'm a little too from the South. I'm a little bit redneck, I guess. When I turn the TV on for a NASCAR race in the latter part of the season, and they're getting down the stretch of the season, like entering the playoffs, right? And again, if you disagree, Tolos, would love to hear from you. When I turn the TV on and I hear a British announcer calling a NASCAR game, I'm turned off. I am.
Yeah, no.
That does not sound like NASCAR to me. I know it's nitpicking. I know it's dumb. But to your point, he's done so many things that don't remind us of NASCAR. And I know that that's not his fault directly, right?
Yeah.
I'm not blaming that on him. But there are just so many things the sport has done that don't remind us of what we all used to love about the sport to begin with.
I don't want to tune in early in the morning to English Premier League soccer and hear some guy from Brooklyn hey, that was a goal. What are you doing over here? It doesn't fit. It's not right. Yeah. And that's been NASCAR's problem for the last 20 years. Now, we haven't even gotten into why he upset a lot of people and why he ended up having
lawsuits,
to step down.
by the way. We hadn't even touched on that.
He went after an absolute legend of the sport in Richard Childress, called him, quote, a stupid redneck who needs to be taken out back and flogged. Why not just go pee on Dale Earnhardt's grave while you're at it? Why not go punch Richard Petty in the face while you're at it? It just, the dude screams, carpetbagger, New York rich guy who knows how to run some sport, but not NASCAR, was brought in to grow it, make more money at any cost, even if it runs off the hardcore dedicated fans.
Well, I'll do you one better than that. Think about this, Diesel. Think about this. The lawsuits that I mentioned. This guy and his tenure under his leadership, you had a owner come into the sport And that owner just so happened to be the most recognizable sports figure in the history of sports. And you,
LeBron?
Michael.
Oh.
And you,
I'm glad you said it.
I know. During your tenure, you're allowing these lawsuits with the charters and the charter agreements and all the lawsuits with Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, 2311. All these things happened under your watch. So what you're telling me is the guy who runs this sport, you have Michael freaking Jordan as an owner. And guess what Michael Jordan's doing? He's bringing eyeballs to the sport. And you're still going to find a way to screw that up.
Yeah.
Think about that. Mm-hmm. A sport that's declining in ratings, you have Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And we're still fine. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me.
It's like saying 5 years from now, LeBron James wants to do the same thing. You say, thanks, but no thanks, LeBron.
Yeah, no thanks.
We're not interested. Let's go to the phone lines. Bring in Dan B., who is a resident NASCAR super fan. Maybe he and Madcraft can fight it out about and see who's the biggest fan. But
that's right.
But Dan, I know you got some strong opinions on this. Are you dancing in some streets today?
Well, I mean, the reason, he stepped down. Okay, so I mean, yes, we'll be fired probably. Call it what it is. But he stepped down because of those text messages about Richard Childress, and that was months and months, or even over a year ago. I don't know. It all had to do when they were negotiating the amount of money of revenue sharing.
Right.
And to be honest, reading the articles, Phelps was kind of an advocate for the teams, but he bowed down to the France family when they were absolutely against the permanent charters, which is what ended up happening anyway. But the whole thing about those texts that comes from Johnny Morris,
Bass Pro,
who's the Bass Pro guy, who's had a very long-standing relationship with Richard Childress, that started with Dale Sr. in an all-star race. He sponsored that car. And then when he's currently Austin Dillon's sponsor, but he's also JGR's sponsor. I forget his name at the top of my head. But was Martin Truex Jr. for a long time. Anyway, so it was that guy's, letter sent to NASCAR, basically asking him to step down and so on. And that all came out in the trial.
And good for Johnny Morris, by the way, of Bass Pro.
I need to talk to him, by the way. I got a Johnny Morris signature reel that I picked up at Bass Pro that gets hung up. It doesn't cast for spit. I need to go.
Well, if you take it, we actually about a mile, not even from where we're sitting, not even a mile, you can drive. And I'm sure Johnny will be there tonight if you have that reel with you.
It would take me like 10 casts to get there because this reel sucks.
Are you not putting your thumb on it?
I do. Yeah, it's Baitcaster. It won't go more than like 50 feet.
Bird's nesting too?
No,
not bird nesting.
No. It just something's going on in the.
You need to change the line.
Yeah. Well, I tried that. It doesn't work. It's just a crap reel.
We can talk fishing if you want, Dan.
Wow. Let's get back on the NASCAR track.
Sorry. but hey, all kidding aside, good on Johnny Morris because Diesel joked about it, but you're talking about somebody in Richard Childress. I mean, one of the most influential figures in NASCAR, and calling him a dumb redneck, taking him out back, flogging him, whatever. Like you obviously, as a guy who's over this sport, have lost touch with your number one target base.
Yeah, and well, he said in the trial that he obviously apologized, and he said he was just frustrated at the time. I'm sure him and Richard Childress had made up, and there was no issue there. But what was done was done, so it was kind of like you can't undo it. As far as they only made the commissioner job, I think a year ago, because the PGA was trying to get Phelps to be their commissioner, and then he ended up becoming the NASCAR commissioner, and then Stephen O'Donnell became the president because Phelps was the president, and I'm sitting here thinking, what's the difference between a commissioner and a president? That's like the same job. Yeah. It's one or the other. I mean, I don't know what the commissioner does different than the I don't know.
Well,
it's just rich people being rich people in the NASCAR world.
The difference, Dan, is that Marilyn Monroe never stood on a vent and saying "Happy Birthday, Mr. Commissioner."
Yeah,
yeah, there you go.
They'd have been playing golf. If he would have won the PGA, they'd be playing golf downtown Chicago, putt style, right?
or San Diego. I mean, I assume Phelps it was a huge part of how the San Diego race is going to occur next year, which I think is an awesome idea. racing around on a naval air station on the runways and taxiways. That is going to be amazing, I think.
Why not just do a race on like a carrier?
Get that tank out of the way, guys, first. Good God.
That would be believe it or not, it would still be a pretty tight track. I know carriers, it's only 1,000 feet long.
No,
so.
I mean, remember they used to do basketball games every year. They play basketball, and
I
they would say
that,
like,
man.
it would rock just a little bit, and the sight lines with all that open water behind you that screw up your eye line.
Yeah. My last thing I'll say to you, Dan, I don't know what the plan is. I hadn't seen any information about what their plan is. I just hope they get somebody who kind of somewhat.
No, I don't think they're going to get anybody. They said for the time being they're not looking. It's just Steve O'Donnell they'll just go back to the way it was a year ago. Because essentially there's nothing really needed.
So Dan, would you want a future head of NASCAR, whatever job title you want to give it? It seems unlikely that they're going to reel this thing back in, to reuse that fishing analogy. They're not going to say, all right, we're not going to do the Chicago race. We're not going to do the New York race. We're going to undo the San Diego race. And we're going to kill off any track that's not in the traditional Southeast, even though a lot of us hardcore old school fans would say, yeah, that's what we need to do. Let's bring racing back to North Wilkesboro. Let's get 2 races back at Darlington.
They are doing that. Darlington already has 2 races.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm
just making a point. Yeah, just making a point.
Spring in the fall, yeah.
Richmond.
Yeah, the Chicago Street Race was a 3-year thing. It's done.
Thank God.
I don't know the San Diego thing. Yeah, I was not a huge fan of that. The San Diego race, I don't know anything if it's going to go farther. I did hear that Rockingham, there's a lot of talk about Rockingham coming back.
Didn't Rockingham host Xfinity, though? Or no?
Yeah, they may. Yeah, a lot of these other tracks that the Big Cup Series was always on, the lower series still do race on.
I could have sworn Xfinity ran Rockingham last year. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't remember. I don't follow it as closely.
Well, don't act like I do either.
Let's do NASCAR at Bowman Gray and Hickory Motor Speedway.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Bowman Gray's coming back. Bowman Gray is that's happening. That's I think the Clash. That's going to be the first race of the year.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say, I know you were talking about this foreign, announcer Lee Diffie. He actually is really good.
I don't care if he's good, Dan. I don't care.
Dude, then me and you are going to disagree because I think most of the fans actually do enjoy the NBC broadcast mainly because of him. And I forget who the other main guy is on that one. But I'm a fan. I didn't know who he was. I guess he used to be around. I don't remember his voice. I don't remember.
Do you want Snoop Dogg calling the Masters too, Dan? I mean, come on.
Oh, you want the Masters? Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Put in Jim Nance and who's the Irish guy, man? Yeah, let him go for it. That would be amazing.
Okay,
would
maybe
you look at it? Martin Truex Jr. goes to the inside. There's just something wrong about that.
He's not British. He's Australian.
Sorry, Australian. Sorry, still across the pond. I mean, what are we
way
doing?
Too Cockney with my accent.
Dan, thanks for the call, man.
Appreciate it, Dan.
By the way, a little bit of breaking news from Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. Old Dominion standout Jerome Carter has committed to Clemson. He was all-conference defensive player that kept Clemson hot in the portal, and that makes 2 commitments to Clemson today, 1 yesterday. So Tom Allen, man, he is getting after it in the transfer portal right now.
I'm just ready for all of these big schools to get who they're going to get so it can start trickling down. Like, hey, guy, you didn't get to step up like you wanted to. Come on to Boone because we need bodies too.
Oh, man, you do need bodies. You do, certainly. College hoops tonight. Man, a big, big night in college hoops. One that needs to be talked about. We'll talk about it next. College basketball tonight, Diesel, and a good night in college basketball as well. Some big-time matchups, some big-time games. I know that we talked about this earlier. We still have the hangover from football season, right? But it is time, as we talked about with Rocco Miller earlier. By the way, fantastic stuff. If you missed it, you can go back and find it on the Odyssey app. But it is time to now turn your attention to basketball season. A lot of good stuff. And I'll tell you what, man, I know I asked Rocco about it. I'm blown away. I'm just blown away that Todd Golden and his Florida Gators, after winning a national championship, are just barely receiving votes. Like, that blows my mind, Diesel.
Where are they on the season at this point? Florida.
They're close to. They have a winning record.
Yep.
But they're
9-5.
Yeah.
With a loss to Arizona, who's now the number one team in the country, by the way. They lost to TCU. They lost to Duke, UConn. So the teams that they lost to were 13, 4, 5 at the time.
And to his point, a lot of those close losses as well, right?
Yeah. The Arizona game was a 6-point game. The Duke loss was 1 point. The UConn loss was by 4 points. The TCU loss was by 4 points. The Missouri loss was by 2. So, maybe they just need Dabo Sweeney down there doing some PR, saying, well, we were just a few plays away from winning this game.
A few plays is bad, but funny. Tonight in college basketball, top 25, Michigan, Penn State should be a good one. Michigan's number 2 in the country, 13-0. They are favored. I said, let me back up. I said should be a good one. I don't know. They're favored by 22.5 points, which is, by the way, on the road. On the road, they're favored by this Michigan team's good. But a 22.5 point favorite tonight.
Penn State. I mean,
I know, but my gosh.
Penn State's not even a top 100 net team.
I know, but 22.5 points. You also tonight, 7 o'clock, Diesel on ESPN. This one should be fun, man. Number 20, Louisville versus number 6, Duke. Go get them, Pat Kelsey. Let's go, baby.
KFC Yum Center. A little home court advantage.
Yes.
How is Louisville doing at home? Well, they've only
lost 3.
They've lost 3 ball games.
Yeah.
One of them was at home. They lost on the road, not a close game against Tennessee. They lost on the road at Stanford by 4.
They're good, man. The Cards are 11-3, maybe a little under-ranked, Diesel. Duke, number 6 in the country, they're 13-1. A close spread tonight, tight spread. Duke, the Blue Devils, favored by 1.5 on the road. So you mentioned it. It's at Louisville. I think this is going to be maybe the best game of the night. And then Georgia. How about Georgia? The turnaround they've had in the past couple of years. They're 13-1, number 18 in the country here in early January at Florida. Again, we just talked about Todd Golden's squad, right? Florida. All right, here's what I don't understand. Maybe there's a star player out. I have not looked and researched Georgia basketball lately, not the last 24 hours. Diesel, Georgia is number 18 in the country at 13-1. Florida's 9-5, not ranked. You ready for this? Florida tonight's favored by 9.5.
Wow. What?
Think about that. That line seems...
Is there a cold going around the Georgia locker room?
That line seems off, right?
Yeah, that's odd.
That seems off. Also tonight, Iowa, Minnesota, 2 good teams. UCF, top 25, going at Oklahoma State. Top 15 matchup, Houston, number 7, taking on number 14, Texas Tech. Houston's 13-1. Texas Tech, 11-3. That game's at 9 p.m. on FS1. Texas, Tennessee tonight, top 25 matchup. Tennessee favored by 10.5. And then tonight at 9 o'clock on ESPN, TCU and Kansas, 22, number 22 ranked Jayhawks are 7.5 point favorites tonight hosting TCU. So some really good college basketball on tonight in the top 25.
Dan B messages in on the stream. He says, how about them Huskers 14-0?
Yeah.
Dan, are you going to be the Madcraft of basketball season? Are you going to be all over your Cornhuskers all season long?
Dan, I don't know if you got to listen to the interview with Rocco Miller or not, but I asked him about Nebraska. Yeah. I mean, they're for the first time since 1966 in the top 25. Think about that. That is a long time.
Well, if you missed it, number 1, you can always podcast it on the free Odyssey app.
Yeah.
Number 2, we're going to replay it for you in the 6:20 segment. So if you missed it, we'll bring it back live here in just about 20 minutes. But on the other side of the break, last night, there was an absolute barn burner, and Cole, you didn't even watch it. You missed it. You missed it.
I had to catch up.
Football game last night in the FCS National Championship. We all talk about wanting that purity back in the sport. Well, we got it last night in spades. We'll get back into the conversation about Montana State racking up their second Division I FCS national championship next.